Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Dissecting Zeta Gundam. I'm Hatter, your host, and today we're looking at Emma's decision, which is an episode that I really like because we get to see some characters moving the story forward. It's a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of modern media where the plot just kind of happens to the characters without any motive whatsoever.
Well, one guy killed the other guy.
It wasn't motivated.
Sure it was. Guy in a hat killed the other guy in the hat.
But I'm getting way ahead of myself. Spoilers ahead. Let's hop right in. First, I would be remiss if I didn't mention an odd line from the preview from the previous episode. The narrator poses the question whether Emma is going to become Kamille's new lover. Now, by the end of the series, we know that this is not the case, but I think that there is a development arc we are seeing in Kamille through the women in his life. No, I'm not saying that Zeta is some harem anime, but it's very similar to how Link is characterized in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, as is shown in the Good Blood documentary, A Masterclass in Subtext. I'll put a link in the description for you to check it out if you haven't. It is an amazing analysis. Now, if you'll forgive my tangent, Kamille, like Link, has several women in his life that represent various types of love and relationships that every boy must experience when becoming a man. Family, friendship, marriage, sexuality, and so on. So while no, Emma is not Kamille's lover, we will see their relationship move from one of admiration to attraction, perhaps, on Kamille's part, and finally settling on adoptive siblings after a fashion. The reason I'm bringing this up now after such an odd throwaway line is because we are going to see these kind of moments creep up with Kamille and the women aboard the Argama where relationships seem kind of fuzzy. Now, as we talked about before, Kamille has a serious identity crisis going on where his manhood is constantly being questioned, just like Link in Ocarina of Time. And as he grows from a boy into a man, he must sort out the sort of feelings he has with each of the women in his life. And that's before we even get into the new type connections and the baggage that brings. So keep these ideas in the back of your head every time you see an awkward interaction between Kamille and a female character in the series. We pick up right where we left off following the death of Hilda Bidan, which kicks off a chaotic battle between the Aeug, the Titans, and the Federation. Kamille is understandably in a frenzy after seeing his mother die and he's out for blood, but the stakes are too high for Kamille to just act on impulse, so Quattro launches in the Rick DS to go and stop him. Lila and her team are sent out, but with Emma out there as well, there's two Gundams and nobody is identifying as friend or foe, so the fight gets really messy really quick. Quattro is forced to make the call and surrender Kamille and the Gundams to Emma in order to avoid further bloodshed. It's a pretty sloppy battle since Kamille just grabs Jared's Hyzak and Emma tries to wrench him away. None of the pilots are really fighting at their best, it's just all reacting viscerally. The big takeaway here is that after Emma narrowly avoids friendly fire from Lila, she declares that nothing good can come from this fight. Quattro calls out to Blex that it was Emma who wants a ceasefire before signaling for their surrender. This is a big deal because Quattro is staking the lives of everyone aboard the Argama, as well as Kamille and his father, on the off chance that Emma is going to do the honorable thing. And we don't have any indication that this was new type intuition either, since that is usually accompanied by some audio or visual cue. After a short scene where Emma escorts the Gundam Mark IIs and Kamille back to the Alexandria, Lex asks Quattro if he's doing all of this in order to convince Kamille to join the Aeug, and he gives him a very cryptic response. He says, "If you're satisfied with that reasoning, then please think of it that way." I think that this is hinting at Char's ulterior motives in bringing Kamille on board the Argama, because so far we haven't been given many indications about his intent for the young new type, but I think that as the story unfolds, Char ends up playing many roles to Kamille, like father or brother-in-arms. It still doesn't get at his ultimate goals, however. Char's last new type protege was a romantic relationship with Lala Soon, but this time he seems to be almost preparing Kamille to replace him. On multiple occasions we'll see him nearly sacrifice himself in order to protect Kamille, and he famously tells him the old generation can't build the new era when Kamille risks his life to try and save Char's. Now I have a few theories about Char's deeper motivations, but for now we just get this foreshadowing. Speaking of foreshadowing, Henkin asks if Emma might also be a new type. Now we know that Henkin's interest in Emma is romantic, but he frequently downplays this as, we'll call it, professional curiosity. He's a man who denies his own heart while maintaining a sense of decorum when it's necessary. Emma finally meets Kamille and she demands that he confirm whether or not his mother was actually killed. She's still holding out hope that Blex is wrong about the Titans. Now, maybe this is because she believes in their greater goals. I mean, as we saw in the last episode, some of the Argama crew called her a fanatic. But perhaps she's simply looking out for her own soul by ensuring that she's not aligned with a group that would stoop so low. In this short scene between Kamille and his father, we get a couple of insights about both of their characters. For starters, it nearly mirrors the interaction between Franklin and Hilda in the last episode. Like literally, the scene is framed in reverse with Kamille on the opposite side of Franklin. And similarly, Kamille wastes no time in making a dig about his father's mistress. Franklin also slaps Kamille almost exactly the same as he slapped Hilda. Now, we're going to see Kamille get slapped a lot in this show, but certain occasions, such as this one, carry a lot more weight. Furthermore, we get a hint that perhaps something isn't quite right with Kamille. After telling his father about Hilda's death, he laughs while making his joke about the Mistress Margarita. While everyone responds to death differently, anger and sadness are fairly common, Camille's laugh is really unsettling. It seems very tone-deaf given the situation that they're in and the fact that he and his father may be executed next. Now, there are a few more examples we'll talk about in later episodes of Camille's interpersonal awkwardness, and some in which other characters are taken aback by some dialogue that sounds almost sociopathic, but that's why I think this moment is an important milestone in his character arc. Next, we finally get our true kick the dog moment from Jared. Now, while I've said a lot of nice things about him so far, he could have expressed some genuine regret or sympathy for Camille's mother dying, but instead he chooses violence and he decides to insult Kamille by calling him a baby. Now, I mentioned before that Camille's problem with his feminine name is less to do with some kind of gender confusion and more to do with the fact that his manhood is constantly being called into question. Whether it's saying that he has a girl's name, or his mother constantly coming to his rescue, or Jared calling him things like little kid or baby, anything that insinuates he is anything less than a man sends him into a fit of rage. Now, ironically, his tantrums merely prove his immaturity. Now, for Jared, this is a very revealing moment because it confirms what a jerk he is, yes, but it also shows a lack of foresight on his part. This is the second time that he's picked on Kamille, and it will come back to bite him later. Now, Camille's response to Jared is very interesting as well, because at first we get to see the familiar tears start to well up in his eyes, but after a reassuring touch from Emma, he takes a deep breath, and he says that Jared is just a grunt following orders, and kind of suggests that he doesn't matter. He says that he must direct his anger at the Titans as an organization instead of a single man. Now, perhaps Camille's maturing more quickly than we thought, or maybe there was something in Emma's touch that calmed him down. I don't think that there's any new type shenanigans at play here, but the relationship between Emma and Kamille is starting to grow, and he's proving to be less reactive and impulsive than we've seen so far. Bask is a cunning and manipulative leader. In this next scene, he seems to know instinctively that Emma did not approve of using Hilda as a hostage. Perhaps he felt her allegiance slipping away, and in an effort to keep her with the Titans, he decides to have her devise a plan to steal the Ayug's Rictius mobile suit and show how she would have done it if she were in charge. Now, not only is he putting on an act, pretending to regret the death of Hilda Bidan, but he's also testing Emma to see how far her loyalty goes. It's a brilliant deceit, but I think he lacks the charisma to really sell it, and as a result, well, you'll see. Emma makes her choice. She frees Franklin Bidan and declares her intent to leave the Titans. She also shows that she won't hesitate to shoot Franklin if he doesn't go with her. This seems to be hypocritical on the surface, considering that she didn't approve of Bask using hostages, but I think this could mean one of two things. Either she still has some Titans tendencies in her, resulting in these occasional moments of cruelty, or perhaps violence in and of itself isn't reprehensible when done for a good cause. Again, we see Kamille biting his nails when he's rescued. It's a minor detail, but given how frequently he's shown biting his nails, we as the audience should come to understand that he has some form of untreated anxiety that is manifested in this habit. Then we get a moment that seems to punctuate all of this conflict that we've been seeing so far. Emma grabs Camille's arm to lead him out. He pulls away, saying that he's not a child and that he can walk by himself. Again, Kamille takes great offense at even subtle gestures that challenge his manhood, and the calming touch that Emma provided earlier is now soured when it's in a different context. There's so much confusion and frustration in Kamille over such small gestures. Kamille shows off some zero-G martial arts skills when he and Emma knock out Kakra Khan and another Titans pilot. More importantly in this scene, though, we get our earliest hint that Franklin Bidan might have ulterior motives in leaving with Emma when he asks his son whether he's piloted the new AUG mobile suit. Not only does he not ask if Kamille is okay or question the fact that his wife was just murdered, all he's focused on is the Rick Diaz. Now, I know we talk about the similarities between Kamille and Amuro pretty often, but there's such a stark difference in the character of Temray compared to Franklin Bidan. Temray may have been neglectful at times, but not to the degree that Franklin Bidan is, and certainly not before he suffered a psychotic break after being thrown into space. Couple that with Franklin's infidelity and the fact that Temray had a greater purpose to his actions besides just making the Gundam better for its own sake. Franklin Bidan is a petty and despicable man whose worst traits we can see crop up in Kamille from time to time. So when Kamille talks about being a man, bear in mind that this is the example he has to follow. Again, we see Emma's ruthless streak when she threatens the crew of the Alexandria with a beam rifle in order to get out of the hangar, and she also blasts an engineer with the Gundam's thrusters. Lila and her team attempt to intercept the Gundams, and now we see Camille's inexperience in battle start to show. He's only 17, but thus far he's only brawled once or twice in the Gundam Mark II, and never against an enemy that was actually trying to kill him. He expends all of his ammo trying to shoot down Lila before Quattro and the AUG come to his rescue. The episode closes with Emma speaking to Quattro in the hangar of the Argama. Quattro says he doesn't trust Emma yet, which we as the audience know is a lie, since he's the one who gambled on her coming back in the first place. Emma confirms that nothing about her has changed. She still wants to live according to her own beliefs, which she now sees is not aligned with the Titans, or at least not with Bask and Jamaicon. But we don't know what it means yet, and whether the AUG will be the right fit for her after all. Kamille assures Quattro that Emma is a good person, and a flutter of joy sort of washes over her face. Now perhaps this is a red herring attempt to convince the audience that Kamille and Emma are interested in one another romantically. It's clear that Emma as a character represents a sort of object of desire, from Henkin's bashful romantic interest to Quattro and Blex's desire to see her leave the Titans, and finally Camille's awkward hot and coldness toward her like a boy pulling the pigtails of a girl he likes. It's not something as simple as her just being a pretty face that all of these men are interested in, since only one of them is actually romantically interested in her. The biggest hint here is Quattro asking whether the change occurred within Emma herself, which she assumed meant changing her mind about the Titans, but what if he was really suggesting that she was beginning to awaken as a new type? Later on in the series, we'll talk about the various new type sensations, like being pulled towards one another, or the pressure from oppressive new types. Perhaps the gravitational draw of Emma Sheen is tied to her potential as a new type. So that's it for Emma's decision. We see that whether she's a new type or not, Blex and Quattro's faith in her was well placed, and what started as a minor offense between Kamille and Jared has now blossomed into a full-on blood feud. Characters are really starting to draw their lines in the sand, and the stakes are being set. What we don't see, however, yet is what is Char's place in all of this? Why has he aligned himself against the Earth Federation again, and why is he keeping his identity a secret? As always, if you guys are digging this series, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you later.